I thought about Gillie, but Gillie ain't nobody but his son.
Like, what? What?
So, of course, that's, terrible. So Gillie responded, and I think that honestly,
that's sad, man.
This was a dope response.
I don't respond with Vaughn. If he's talking, go get your gun. You hear me? I'm not... Neff, let me just tell you something, okay?
What's up, though?
I'm an old school nigga, man. All right?
Uh-huh.
We don't say what we was going to do on the internet and all that type of shit. That's kids.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like if you was going to do something, you would have done it.
Yeah.
So Neff, that's rap music, man.
Is that NBA Youngboy?
Yeah, that's like
rappers make rap music. Rappers make rap music, man. That's all it is, man. It ain't nothing, man. I don't feel no type of way.
You can't make me feel some type of way mentioning my son. That don't hurt. I already come to grips with what happened. That's Gillie the Kid, responding to a bar that stopped the entire culture cold. Not a diss, not disrespect on the level rap usually trades in. NBA Youngboy had referenced the murder of Gillie's son and framed it as a failure of manhood. We're going to walk you through who these two men are, what actually connected them before any of this, what Youngboy did, and what Gillie chose to say back. Because what he chose not to say might be the most important part of this whole story. Gillie the Kid, born Nasir Fard, is one of North Philadelphia's most recognizable figures in hip-hop. Before he became co-host of one of the culture's biggest podcasts, he was in the streets grinding as a rapper with the legendary Philly collective Major Figures, earning credibility in a city that demands authenticity above everything. Alongside his cousin Wallow 267, he co-founded $1 Million Worth of Game, a weekly podcast that pulled over 1 million views an episode, with guests ranging from Shaquille O'Neal to Kevin Hart to Alicia Keys. Gillie had become more than a rapper, a mentor figure, a Philadelphia institution. NBA Youngboy, born Kentrell Deshaun Galden in Baton Rouge, built a different kind of legend. Juvenile detention, loss after loss, and music released relentlessly while the legal system tried to slow him down. Over 30 billion streams made him one of the most consumed artists of his generation, and the rawness in his voice, records that felt like unfiltered diary entries, connected with one of the most loyal fan bases in rap. Through house arrest, federal charges, and prison time, he never stopped releasing music, and by summer 2026, he was weeks from a scheduled release date. Before July 2026, there was no publicly known tension between these two men. In fact, their most documented interaction was the opposite of beef. In December 2023, Gillie and Wallow traveled to Utah, where Youngboy was under house arrest fighting federal gun charges, and recorded an episode that gave fans an intimate, humanizing look at one of rap's most private stars. It was warm and respectful on both sides. But days after that episode dropped, a Youngboy associate named Hermtha Black Sheep posted on Instagram suggesting the interview hadn't actually been cleared for release, then added a line many read as a direct shot at Gillie. Something about people liking to bring gangster energy to a room with Youngboy, instead of directing that energy at whoever actually harmed the people they loved. That landed hard, because Gillie had just lost his son to gun violence. It planted a seed that never fully went away. And looking back now, it reads like a preview of exactly what was coming. To understand why the eventual bar hit as hard as it did, you have to understand who Gillie's son was. Devin Spady, known as YNG Cheese, was 25, an aspiring rapper from Chester, Pennsylvania, following his father's footsteps and building his own lane with a 1-year-old child at home. On the evening of July 20th, 2023, a shooting occurred in the Olney section of Philadelphia. Cheese was shot once in the back and pronounced dead within the hour. 10 shell casings were found at the scene. No arrests were made, no weapons recovered. The grief that swept through Philadelphia and hip-hop was enormous. Meek Mill, Lloyd Banks, Swizz Beatz, Fat Joe all sent condolences. Months later, on the Pivot podcast, Gillie said the worst moment of his life was washing his son's body, and that it was also the moment that made him a man. He'd thought he was a man before, paying bills, taking care of his family, but that moment stripped everything away and rebuilt him. It was the kind of honesty that reminded people why his voice carried so much weight. In the years after, he kept his son's memory alive through his platform and community work. And in summer 2025, Meek Mill gifted him a custom iced-out pendant with Cheese's portrait, a moment Gillie posted through tears, captioned, "Love and appreciate you, my brother. Long live Cheese." Cheese wasn't just a story to the culture. He was a living wound, and everyone close to Gillie knew it, which is exactly why what happened next landed the way it did. In the weeks before the diss, Youngboy entered what fans call scorched earth mode, going after Future the same night Future dropped his album, then Rich the Kid, then artists across Atlanta, firing in every direction like a man with nothing left to lose. Then, in an unreleased snippet circulating on July 14th, came the line, "He'd thought about Gillie, but that man didn't even kill anybody about his own son." Youngboy wasn't taking a shot at Gillie as a public figure. He was invoking a murdered 25-year-old and calling his grieving father a coward for not avenging him. No Jumper reposted the clip, and within hours it was everywhere. The reaction across the culture was swift and almost unanimous. This wasn't a bar, this was something else. Hot New Hip Hop called it an extremely unfortunate line, and noted plainly that disrespecting the dead is a boundary you don't cross. Even fans who'd been entertained by Youngboy's chaos in the weeks prior drew a hard line here. Gillie's response came the next day, July 15th, on a live stream. He didn't explode, he didn't threaten, he rapped a few bars of Lil Durk's a track loaded with its own meaning around grief and street loyalty, then spoke plainly that he's an old school man, and old school men don't announce what they're going to do on the internet. That he didn't feel some type of way, that he'd already come to grips with what happened. Then he added the detail that reframed the entire moment. His youngest living child is older than NBA Youngboy. Read that again. Gillie is old enough that his youngest child is older than the man who just put his dead son's name in a diss track. That line, "We don't say what we're going to do on the internet," became the most quoted moment of the entire story, spreading just as fast as Youngboy's original clip. The contrast was stark. Youngboy went loud and reckless. Gillie came back measured and cold. And in hip-hop, that quiet response often carries more weight than any comeback ever could. The question nobody's been able to answer convincingly is why Youngboy went after Gillie at all. There was no serious, publicly documented grievance heading into this. Multiple outlets, including All Hip Hop and Hot New Hip Hop, explicitly noted the origin of the tension was unclear. The most honest read is that Youngboy was crashing out, firing on instinct with no real target list, and Gillie simply landed in the spray. What makes that more troubling than comforting is the timing. This was a man weeks from freedom on July 27th, after a grueling legal journey through federal gun charges and a reduced sentence, using that window to reference a dead man in an attack on that man's father. This forces a question the culture revisits every few years. Where are the real boundaries in rap beef? The genre was built on confrontation, but some lines have always existed regardless. You don't put people's children in songs, you don't invoke the dead for maximum pain. What makes this particular case harder to sit with is that Youngboy himself is a father who's made music about the fear of leaving his own kids behind. That's a man who should understand what he was doing better than most. The disconnect between his own catalog of emotional honesty and this one line is what left even his most loyal defenders struggling to rationalize it. What's remarkable is what Gillie's restraint accomplished. It reignited conversations about Cheese that had gone quiet for months. The body-washing confession, the Meek Mill pendant, everything Gillie built in the shadow of that loss. It put a fresh, uncomfortable spotlight on Youngboy's trajectory at the exact moment that should have been a triumphant return to freedom. And it produced one of the most memorable responses in recent hip-hop memory. Not a diss track, not a rage-filled rant, but a man who quoted a few bars and reminded everyone that real ones don't telegraph their next move. Gillie the Kid has spent 2 years turning grief into purpose, building something meaningful in his son's name, showing his city that loss doesn't have to be the end of a story. He didn't let one line reduce any of that to a punchline. He responded like a man who has already survived the worst thing life can do to a person. And that composure spoke louder than anything Youngboy could have written. So here's the real question heading into July 27th. Does Youngboy step back into freedom with the culture celebrating his return, or with people still asking whether he owes an explanation for what he put into the atmosphere on his way out? What do you think? Did Youngboy cross a line that can't be uncrossed, or is this just rap beef doing what rap beef has always done? Drop your thoughts below and subscribe if you're not already locked in.